Welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast, the college offseason podcast. Oh, Matt's not here. I can actually throw this intro back in here, where we're less of the regular season, but more of the offseason. So, inspired by the head Florida State basketball coach, Leonard Hamilton, stepping down at the end of the year for allegations we will not get into, it begs the question of what coaches are on enough of a hot seat that they may not be able to walk away on their own terms the way Leonard Hamilton is. So, what we have planned to do today is that Ryan and I have put together a list with the help of Matt, who was not able to be on the show today, of the top five coaches, in our opinion, who are on the hottest hot seat in college basketball. Now, unlike episodes of the past, where usually we have five of our own, we put our heads together because two heads are better than one, and we put together five total guys that we think are on the hottest hot seat in college basketball. So, Ryan, you got anything you want to say before we get started?
I do want to say, and I don't know if you were going to cover this later in the show, we had someone on the list, but according to news that just came out, it's confirmed Mike Woodson is going to be not Indiana's coach next year. So we took him off the list. So we have five different guys than Mike Woodson because he would be a clear number one.
Yeah, so absolutely. Ryan is absolutely right. That's a little bit of a spoiler alert because at the end of the show, after we get done with our list, we are going to talk about Mike Woodson and IU mutually parting ways at the end of the season. And then we are going to get into who we would want to be the top coach to take over the IU program. But before we get started again, you know what coach is not on the hot seat, Ryan?
Pat Kelsey. Ha ha ha.
True, absolutely. In my opinion, is the coach of the year favorite right now. I know there's a lot of buzz with Rick Pitino right now, but
Are you
I was going to say another coach that you absolutely know a little all too well about, and it kind of has to do with your hoodie right there. Ryan Day signing an extension for twelve
Oh
and a
yeah.
half million a year. He's clearly not in the hot seat. He's come a long way since the fire rumors after the Michigan game.
I mean, he went through a roller coaster. I mean, that is a full up and down, maybe upside down roller coaster. But now he got his money, and we'll just keep going.
He's got the bag now.
Oh
Twelve
yeah,
and a
he
half
did.
milli a year. I
That's a
mean,
lot.
think of all the players that get by with that contract.
I know. We could
If
just
Texas doesn't
send
poach him
money
first.
bags. Yeah, we could send money bags. We can steal coaches. We need. We got our offensive coordinator. Got our O line. We just need to figure out the defensive coordinator, which he said it should be in the next couple of days. So.
I actually like that Texas got your all's defensive end coach because, he's worked with some other really good players,
He's done
like
well.
Daniel. He's done well. He's worked with some really good players, has a reputation of player development. He's got a great defensive end room to work with at Texas next year. Colin Simons, Ethan Burke, Trey Moore, and a name that I think people are going to learn more of next year that they don't probably know a lot of now is Colton Vasek. Very good prospect, very talented player. He's gonna have a lot of players to work with. So I'm excited as a Texas fan. And August 30th cannot come soon enough for me and Ryan. We got Texas versus Ohio State at the shoe, first game of the year. It don't get much bigger than this. Arch Manning versus Julian saying it's gonna be prime time. Get your popcorn ready, my boy.
I know it feels like we did this. We did this game like a couple weeks ago. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, something to do with I feel like there was a little bit on the line too.
Yeah, there was, but yeah, it's so weird, and I'm almost feel like it's like sometimes useless to have big games at the start of the season because you've seen where teams can have easy schedules and get into the playoffs. But I mean, props to us for scheduling this game.
That could be a question we ask the Twitter following. We might as well vote. Are you in favor of having big games at the beginning of the season? Yes or no? We might drop that later on the Less is More Sports Twitter/X, whatever the hell it is now on social media. But anyways, let's officially get into our list, and we're going to kick it off at the number five. And I'm going to lead this because this is a coach that I have all too many feelings about, and that is Coach Rodney Terry at Texas. And the reason I kicked it off with him is because if you are a longtime listener of this podcast, you'll know that I got on this podcast when he stepped in from the interim head coach role after Chris Beard was dismissed from the program and defended him. I even made the statement that if Texas does not hire him as a full-time head coach, that I would drop Texas basketball as one of my fans. Obviously, Anyone with half a brain could tell you that's probably not the biggest threat in the world. I doubt they care if I root for him or not. But still, it goes to show how much I defended him on this podcast if he was not given that head coaching opportunity. But since then, at the end of the day, Texas is Texas. The standard at Texas is not the standard at, other schools. They have not quite lived up to preseason expectations the last couple seasons. And I think one of the biggest problems with that is that he can't keep guys to stick around more than 1 year. This isn't like a Duke situation where they're constantly reloading with one and done talent. They're relying really heavily through the transfer portal, and those transfers that they are getting are often transferring to other schools the very next year. If he could get more guys to stick around for multiple years and like establish a culture, I think he would be better. But at this point in time, he's not doing that. So I think that is what's led to Texas kind of underachieving from preseason expectations in recent years. Ryan, do you have anything to add before we get into number four?
Well, I mean, I like some of the players on your all's roster. Like Trey Johnson is an absolute bucket.
Oh yeah,
Arthur
bucket.
Kuzma is really good. I know Caden Shedrick well because his time at Virginia, I believe. Um, but yeah, I mean, I remember when he stepped in, and if you, I get the SEC is really tough, but if you're in the SEC, you have to have a team that can compete with the SEC, and if you're not the guy, then you're not the guy. But we will see with Rodney Terry and his players.
And another thing that really frustrates me as a Texas fan is like, especially being a fan of both Texas and Duke, it's like I watch Duke and I watch how well they move the ball, and then I go tune into Texas and their ball movement is just so cringy to watch. It's a lot of isolation, taking tough contested mid-range shots, and it's just so frustrating to watch, especially when you do root for another team that moves the ball so well. But that's neither here nor there. I think it's time to officially get into our number four coach. So Ryan, who do we have?
At number four, all three of us decided, or I think this was actually my pick, but we all agreed that Ben Johnson from Minnesota is at number four. Minnesota just has a tough. I mean, there's a trend where they just have a tough time with coaches. They had Richard Pitino. He's gone. He was learning from a legend in his father, Rick Pitino, who had by the way, a great win last night against UConn. But you know, it's something about Minnesota that just they'll either lose in the first round of the tournament or they don't make it. It seems like they're a team where they're one of those Big Ten teams that they it's a really hard place to play at their place because it's a weird place. You're on an elevated court that you're not used to. Minnesota is a tough team. They got tough players, but it just seems like throughout the whole season they don't have success, but they could have an upset here or there. But it's a weird team to face, and I don't think Ben Johnson is getting it done. And he's had some solid players. They need to get more players in like the portal or recruit. I know Minnesota's not the hottest place to go, but in their conference, they are in the Big Ten. They are 12, or overall they're 12-11. They're 4-8 in the conference, and yeah, I mean, it's just it's not it's not great right now for Minnesota. I feel like it hasn't been for a while. They need a fresh start. They need to get players from the portal, players recruiting. So yeah, I have Ben Johnson at number four of the coach hottest seat.
And to wrap up Ben Johnson, he has a 53 and 65 record at Minnesota. He has no NCAA tournament appearances and one NIT appearance. And I will say, because Ryan, I think, touched on a good point, Minnesota is not the hottest coaching job in college basketball. And I think that is one factor that he has going for him, or he would probably be a lot higher on this list.
Yeah, they're
Coming in at number, do what?
bottom three in the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Anyways, moving on to number three, and this is a coach that I know all too well just because of he's in the Tobacco Road rivalry, and that's
John
Hubert Davis.
Shire. Just kidding.
Hey, stop the cap. Stop the cap. But it's Hubert Davis at North Carolina. And the reason I think it's perfectly fitting to put him in the middle here because, oh, this is going to kill me to say this out loud, but I got to. I got to be fair. One thing that he will always have going for him, that he will always be remembered in Tar Heel fans' lore, is that he does have a national championship appearance And he did. God, this is gonna kill me to
I
say
knew
it.
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think everybody knows what I'm about to say. And he ended Coach K's career. God, that hurts so bad to say out loud,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's the truth. For that, he will always have that going for him. But now he has a losing record against Duke, and soon to be, I don't want to predict the future here, but soon to be two missed tournaments. And at North Carolina, that just ain't gonna cut it. And you know, I don't know what the problem is because he's getting the talented players, but I feel like this year roster construction is an issue because they don't have a big at all.
No.
I mean, our wings are bigger than their center. So I mean, it
They
could
got
be that.
Jalen Withers, who's a transfer from Louisville.
Yeah, he wasn't good at Louisville. I don't know what made North Carolina look at him and be like, that's the guy.
That's
But
that's the guy I want.
yeah, that we want him. But I mean, they have good guards. I mean, and Elliot Cadeau is like the biggest surprise to me because I watched Cadeau through the recruiting ranks and like I absolutely loved his game. Just a true point guard in an era where true point guards are kind of becoming an endangered species. But it's a lot of things. But yeah, Hubert Davis, it seems like this trend of they look really good one year and then they look really bad the next year, and that constant back and forth just ain't gonna cut it at a program as storied as North Carolina. So, but because of other things that absolutely killed me to say out loud, he does have going for him. That's why we put him right smack dab in the middle of this list at number three.
Yeah.
Moving on to number two, another coach that I know really well, but Ryan, who is it?
Yes, you do know him very well. He is actually an alumni of the Duke University. Bobby
I want you to
Hurley.
say that a little louder. Can you say that a little louder,
He's
please?
an alumni at the Duke University. No, not
Thank
Duke,
you. Let's go.
but
Say it with your
um,
chest, little guy.
Bobby Hurley from ASU. And, honestly, this year, Hurley Bros are struggling. I
Oh,
mean,
incoming. We have an appearance. We have an
the
appearance
Bean,
from we have an appearance from the Bean. We have been blessed. He has not been on the
Hurley,
show in a while, so I guess
and
he heard Bob. He must have something to say about Bobby Hurley.
he just got cut off by the fire a couple times by the
He's just too
backlash.
hot. He's just too hot.
You know who's not hot? Bobby Hurley's not hot. Um, the Hurley Bros are struggling this year. I mean, the media is all over them. You know, Bobby Hurley, it looks like I found some news that the Arizona State athletic director criticizes Bobby Hurley because of the Arizona game because he was mad that Caleb Love absolutely destroyed him and Arizona State couldn't do anything about it. And so Hurley did said something I think about Caleb Love, which was absolutely wild. But and there's also fire Bobby Hurley chants at the Arizona State games, which the fire chants that's not unusual. That happens all the time. Like Indiana did it. I think Louisville probably did it for Kenny Payne. That's not unusual, but it just this is his most talented roster that he's had, and it seems like he's doing the same thing as the past couple years. So I don't know. It's not a good look for Bobby Hurley. Everyone wants Arizona State basketball to do well, and they got some good players like Jaden Quaintance, who Louisville really wanted him. His hair is crazy. Have you seen it? I'm
Yeah.
sure you have. Yeah, it's nuts. But he's bottom three in the Big 12, which Big 12 is a good conference for basketball, but that's pretty unacceptable. 12-10 overall and 3-8 in the conference, so not very good. I think he's had some big wins, but some bad losses. So we have Bobby Hurley as the number two in our coach's hottest seats, and the Hurley Bros are struggling this year.
So, update, Bean just wanted to hop on the show and say that Danny Hurley was the better coach out of him and Bobby Hurley. Even though, like,
Now, who's your favorite out of the
who
two?
mine or Bean's?
No, yours.
I mean, Bobby, the one that played at Duke. I mean, when I say favorite, I'm not saying who's the better coach. I mean, that's definitely Danny, but no, I like Bobby better because he's a Duke alumni.
The Duke alumni.
Yeah. And I will say what to finish up on Bobby Hurley. So If you're keeping track, he has a 167 to 141 record in his 10 seasons at Arizona State. He has three made tournaments, but the problem is he's never had fewer than 11 losses. At a lot of programs, that is kind of unacceptable. And I'm going to be completely honest, just as a Duke fan, Duke scrimmaged Arizona State in the preseason, kind of like a welcome home moment for Bobby Hurley. And we won that game by 60 points. And at the time, I thought that was just a sign of how good this Duke team was going to be. And granted, this Duke team's great, but in a lot of ways, that isn't looking as impressive just with how Arizona State's looked at times this season. So,
Yeah, not a good look for the old Bobby.
not a good look at all. And now that officially brings us to the number one coach on the hot seat right now. So, Ryan, who is it?
With the number one would have been Mike Woodson, but now it's not because it's confirmed that he's leaving. Um, Number one coach on the hottest seat, who has the hottest of hottest fire seats. We have Kyle Neptune, who is the Villanova head coach. I'm going to say something, and I feel like it is pretty smooth, but it's hard. It's hard to fill what Jay Wright had. You can put on Jay Wright's shoes, but sometimes you can't fill them. And so I feel like that's what's happened with Kyle Neptune. I don't think Villanova will be good for a while, meaning a couple years. He's 13-10, 6-6 in the Big East, which Villanova I think is a borderline blue blood. Some people call it, some people don't. But it's basketball is better whenever Villanova is really good. And they've had some really, really bad losses. Like Columbia this year, they lost by 10, and then St. Joseph was by like 7 or 8, which is that's just unacceptable for Villanova basketball. But and I saw this on the roster. I do want to talk about one player. They have Eric Dixon. Has he
Hmm.
not been in college for about like 8 years? I swear he's been in college for forever.
Dude, it feels like he was in college like since I've been in college. And those who have been listening to the podcast for a while know that was a while. That's been a while.
I know, like he had to have played for Jay Wright for a couple years and was balling in the tournament for them.
I
He's
honestly
the most
feel
loyal
like
player
in
ever
like
in the
during classes when I would like sneak watching March Madness games like while I was taking like some kind of course, I feel like I was watching Villanova games with Eric Dixon.
I know. I mean, I swear, like he's next year, he's probably going straight to the coaching staff. I swear.
I swear, like he's got to have like a graduate assistant position ready for him already. If not,
I
if he
know.
doesn't already. But like I will say though, speaking of Villanova and my time in college, I'm sure Villanova fans would want me to go back to college because they won two championships while I was in college. So
They were really, really tough to beat. Always a force in the tournament. But
that
now
2018 team is one of the best teams in college basketball history, in my opinion.
yeah, I think we said that I think we said that in our
Yeah, I think we've said it a few times.
yeah.
But that's for the new listeners. If you haven't tuned into the podcast for a long time, yeah, the 2018 Villanova Wildcats are one of the best college basketball teams of all time. And if you don't believe me, check the analytics because they back it up.
Yeah. But I mean, Jay Wright was such a good coach, and that's where he had Villanova. But since he's left, Kyle Neptune has just they haven't lived up to the standard of Villanova basketball, the great Villanova that we know, and so that's why he's the number one player, or sorry, number one coach on the hot seat of hottest seats. And yeah, Kyle Neptune. Sorry, bud, you're number one.
There's a saying across the sports landscape that it's easier to be the guy who replaces the Hall of Famer than the guy who replaces the Hall of Famer. And obviously, across the sports landscape, there's exceptions to the rule. You have Aaron Rodgers replacing Brett Favre very successfully. You have Andrew Luck replacing Peyton Manning very successfully. And now in the college basketball scene, you have John Shire replacing Mike Krzyzewski very successfully. But as an often rule, it is hard to replace an all-time great. In 3 seasons post Jay Wright era at Villanova, three missed tournaments for the Wildcats. And I think this is the first spring for new Villanova athletic director Eric Rodell, and he could be looking to make a statement, kind of stepping in and being like, "Look, this has been a storied program that Jay Wright has taken to very good heights. We can't be affording to miss the tournament anymore." So if he wants to come in and really establish his culture as the Villanova AD, he's probably going to make a serious move and be like, Kyle Neptune, you kind of out of here, bro. So that's just where I stand on Kyle Neptune and why he is the number one hottest coach on the hot seat. Wow, that's kind of that's a little tongue twister there. That's why he's the number one coach on the hot seat right now.
You're saying Kyle Neptune's hot? Is that what you just said?
He's a very attractive man. It's on my daddy Shack shit right here.
Zesty Les. We could have a whole episode.
I'm just saying, Duke. I am a Duke fan, and we have had players like Jared McCain that are known as the zesty hooper. So
Yeah, I mean that's true. And like Jared McCain said, UNC did not make the tournament last year. If you've ever seen that video,
that was the most savage interview I've ever seen. He just stands
who
up,
was
looks
he
at
talking
Rasheed Wallace.
to?
He was talking to
Oh,
Rasheed Wallace.
okay, yeah, that's funny. But yeah, um,
And I want this to be a lesson to people listening to the podcast. If for any young kids who are trying to get into the media world, Jared McCain had one of the perfect stances in that interview because he got up there, asked his question, and he did not back down. Rasheed Wallace tried to get mad at him and be like, "Oh yeah, we ended Coach K's career." He just stood his ground and said, "North Carolina did not make the tournament last year," and just kept repeating it until he gave him an answer, a legitimate answer. And that is prime technique if you for any of you all who are looking to become journalists in the future.
yeah. But I want to re go over our list. So
Hmm.
number 5 is Rodney Terry. Number 4 is Ben Johnson. Number 3 is Hubert Davis. Number 2 is Bobby Hurley. Bobby Hurley, sorry. And then number 1 is Kyle Neptune. And so that's the hottest of hottest seats. Kyle Neptune makes our number 1 list.
But since we wrapped up our top five, it's time to address the elephant in the room, and that is that Mike Woodson is stepping down at IU, both mutually with the IU program and him. But now this brings the number one question is who is going to replace Mike Woodson? I know Matt, who couldn't be on the show today, seems to think it's an almost lock that it's going to be Chris Beard, but obviously on the Less is More Sports podcast, we're not reporters. We're not people that are going to break any news to anybody. We're fans of the college offseason. So what we do here is we kind of think of some fun topics or fun scenarios that might just sound cool because it's more entertaining that way. So what we've decided to do is kind of just throw some names out there and who we would like to see take over as the Indiana basketball head coach. So Ryan, if Indiana could have anybody, who would you want taking over the Hoosier program?
See, I don't know. I was thinking about this. I don't know about anybody, but I think the two guys that really would know Indiana basketball pretty well and do a good job there would be obviously Chris Beard. I'm gonna say Chris Beard too, and Brad Stevens. I mean, I think Brad Stevens, if he got a call right now or at the end of the season, he would take it immediately, and I think Indiana fans would be in heaven. But I was thinking about this. I think that this might be a hot take for Indiana basketball. I think they need to get rid of the whole Bob Knight era thing where we do things right. We have great. I mean, you can have good grades, but we focus on grades first. We don't cheat. We don't give up money. This whole like kind of old time thing, you're kind of looking at me weird. But I think that they just need a fresh start on this whole kind of and leave the not no disrespect to Bob Knight because that wasn't a thing at all. But like it was not on it was not on Bob Knight, but it was that whole kind of time there where they're just gonna do things differently than other teams. But I think that they just need to fresh start and Mike Woodson never had a problem with bigs. He had great bigs on his team past couple years. It was the guard play, and you have to have guard play if you want to do well in the tournament. As long as you make it to that point, but I think that they could do really well with. You're still looking at me weird,
Yeah,
which
I'm
I
going. I'm going somewhere. Trust me. Just I'm gonna let you. You got to finish your point, but I'm
but
going somewhere here.
but but yeah, I think Brad Stevens or Chris Beard would do really well with their um with the players and talent that they could get at Indiana because Indiana is one of the blue bloods of college basketball. They're known for their history. of success in college basketball. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Chris Beard or Brad Stevens. Les,
You kind of had me perking up when you said do things the right way under the Bob Knight era. There's a lot of documentaries out about Bob Knight's time at Indiana, and there's a lot to question of whether he
well,
really did things the right way or
well,
not.
it's not really. I was just saying like an old time coach for Indiana. Not really on him, but like back how they used to, where Indiana is just gonna have like I don't know. It still feels like kind of old times with Indiana. Like we're gonna grades are first. We're not gonna cheat. We're not gonna do what other programs are doing. And right now, it's just not really working out. So it's not really on Bob Knight. It's just saying like the old times how they used to do
Just
things.
okay, like an old school style head coach is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah. They're kind of like an old school style, I would say,
Hmm.
but not on Bob Knight.
Well, since we brought up Bob Knight, I do want to say I think for whoever the next Indiana head coach is going to be, I think what they need to do in their very first regular season game is just throw a chair.
Yeah.
Even though like the chairs are chained now because of Bob Knight, they need to like cut the chains and like just let him throw a chair out on the court. Just really set the tone for his era. I think that would be
just
phenomenal.
just unscrew some screws and then just let it fly,
Yeah, just
and
let it fly. I
also
dig it.
um another thing that Indiana could do, which would really do well for him, is what about Kendiana? What about Kenny Payne? He is
Oh,
looking
I knew you were gonna go there, and I'm here for it. It's great.
um he looks like he's having a ball on the Arkansas staff doing
I hear
absolutely
he did pretty
nothing.
good. I hear he did pretty good at Louisville.
Yeah, no, he did. I mean, he really showed it. Our fans were there in spirit every time, you know. Um, so he's looking for another head coaching job, and he's always on the market, always.
Yeah,
So
he's always available. He's chill. He's right now. He's chilling on that Arkansas bench. Arkansas's kind of hit their stride as of recently. I wish they would not have hit their stride before they played Texas, but hey, that's just how the
yeah,
cookie crumbles sometime.
and Kenny Payne's gonna bring in like that Dion type coaching staff where you just have like legends like Danny Manning,
Oh,
and
did you see where they brought in Marshall Falk too?
yeah, I mean that's
Colorado.
nuts.
That's awesome. They got Warren Sapp and Marshall Falk on staff. That
Now,
is awesome.
who do you think should be the next like type of legend in the NFL, like position wise? Like, okay, so that Marshall Falk for the running backs, they got Warren Sapp for some type of
He's the
defense.
defensive line coach.
Yeah, okay. Now, who would be the next best player to bring in?
I'm trying to think of players that have good connections with Deion Sanders that I think could be realistic. Or what about Michael Irvin as the wide receivers coach?
I mean, that or Chad Ochocinco.
I kind of like this era that, I know we're kind of getting off track here, and I still need to get into me and Matt's pick for, who we would want to be the next Indiana head coach. But, I kind of like this era that we're going into in college football where we're seeing a lot of legendary players come back and coach. You got Michael Vick coaching at Norfolk State now. Of course, that really was kicked off by the Coach Prime era at Colorado.
I
But
feel like
no, I
there's
think
another one.
there is. I'm blanking on it right now, but we'll probably think of it before the end of the show. But
Yeah.
yeah, there was another big time player. Oh, yeah, there was another big time player. We'll probably think of it before the end
Well,
of the show.
while you
Yeah,
get
yeah, you look it up. But no, man, I think it's great because I mean, and just from a player's perspective, I mean, who would you rather learn from? A guy who's never been there or a guy who's literally played at the highest level? So I mean, I think it's great for the sport and just absolutely great for player development. But before we run out of time here, me and Matt were talking about who would be a ideal coaching hire if we were the Indiana AD. And I'm not gonna lie, Matt was being a little. Matt, I know he's not on the show today, and I'm not saying anything behind his back because he'll probably laugh when I say this on the show. But man, this was trying to get him to give an answer here was kind of like selling salt to a slug here. This man was basically like, I mean, it's going to be Chris Beard. It's going to be Chris Beard. I was like, okay, Matt, but who do you want? If Matt McClellan was the Indiana AD, who would you want? And ironically, me and Matt both had the same answer, and that is Iowa State head coach TJ Otzelberger. I watch Iowa State this year and just how modernized their style of play is, and I think it's just perfect for just where the game's at right now in basketball. TJ Otzelberg's doing a great job at Iowa State, and of course, Indiana is a much bigger basketball brand than Iowa State. So I think personally this would be an ideal hire, but of course, I'm sure Indiana is going to want to make a hire with that has more connections with the team, with the program, more connections somewhere down the line. But no, I mean, I don't see how anybody who watches Iowa State this year, any blue blood or former blue blood program watches a team like Iowa State and thinks, you know what, we don't want to go after TJ Otzelberg because I mean he's got those dudes humming right now. They're so entertaining to watch. And honestly, they're probably, as far as play style wise, they're probably one of the closest teams in college basketball that plays like Duke.
Yeah. I was trying to look up the NFL legend. I Deshaun Jackson is now
Yeah,
included.
that's actually that I was thinking Deshaun Jackson. I don't know if we call Deshaun Jackson a legend.
Uh,
I mean, he was very, don't get me wrong, like no shade. The dude was
one of the
awesome.
most
Dude was
electrifying players.
it, yeah, guy was very, very good player, especially in his prime. One of the best deep threats during his era. But yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm shading Deshaun Jackson in any stretch of the word. I'm not. Okay, I am going to shade him because of what he says on that podcast that he could beat Jeff Teague one on one in basketball. It's like, no, you could not. Stop the cap. Jeff Teague, I know he wasn't like an all pro NBA player, but he was still an NBA player nonetheless, and a
This
long
is
time NBA player.
this is one of my favorite things that an NBA player is. It puts it in perspective. Jared Dudley said, "I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me," and
That's
so
that
that
was
really
Brian Scalabrine.
what really I thought it was
No,
Jared Dudley
Brian,
said something to say like that. I think,
he might have
but
said something similar, but the big
yeah,
statement was
that's the
from
one I
Brian
heard.
Scalabrine because Brian Scalabrine he was talking about answering internet trolls and how they always said he sucked or this that or whatever, and he's like, look, I might suck by NBA standards, but I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me. And then what was even more savage about that is that he held an open tryout for people to come play him one on one, and it got from anything from internet trolls to basketball YouTubers to former D1 players, and he dog walked all of them.
Yeah,
Like that really puts into perspective of where guys are at in the NBA versus where your
it's
good
just
rec
different.
league player is.
Yeah, it's just different level, and it's hard to compare.
No, absolutely. And then another coach that kind of or not another situation that really made me think of that is like when Mike Miller was on the Memphis coaching staff and players were playing him one on one and he just dog walked all of them. Like,
Yeah,
it was just, I mean, he took him to school. I mean, very, very minimal dribbling, just, jab step, get to the one dribble, get to his right spot, shoot, money every time. People forget Mike Miller was a very good NBA player. Everybody remembers the 7-3 game in the NBA Finals with my Miami Heat, a team that I like very much. But no, Mike Miller was a rookie of the year, like early in his career. He's probably, I mean, even though he wasn't an all-star or anything, he's still a very, very good NBA player and Florida
well,
legend.
yeah.
Since we're a
I like,
college podcast, Florida legend.
but yeah, we have about 3 minutes. What games are you excited for today besides Duke?
Oh, besides Duke, I got to look at the schedule. While we're looking at the schedule, I'll go ahead and get this out of the way. As always, like and subscribe to Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channels. Be sure to follow the social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. That's at Less is More Sports. Also, be sure to follow the side quest on TikTok. That's at BeansDad018. Now we have about 3 minutes to just ramble about whatever the hell we want till the end of the podcast. Gotta love it. We got through this topic. We got through today's topic very, very quickly. So now we have
We
a
did.
lot of
I
downtime
think
to get into whatever we want. Of course, I mean, obviously taking out my favorite teams out of consideration. Texas plays Vanderbilt at 1 o'clock. Of course, Duke plays Clemson at 6:30. And Dickie V's return to calling
oh yeah.
games.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big time game.
The best
Um,
game probably is Florida and Auburn.
that's going to be a good game. I'll say Matt's probably going to be tuned into that Michigan Indiana game for sure.
I think I will
Um,
too.
Marquette Creighton is actually going to be an intriguing game. Creighton's actually a 3.5 point favorite right now because they're playing at
Yeah.
Creighton.
Yep.
I'll tell you a game that would have looked good in the preseason but doesn't look good now is Miami and Louisville at 2.
I
Louisville's an
know
18 and a half point favorite. Ooh, Texas A&M and M and Missouri at 3:30 is going to be a really good
Miami
game.
stinks.
They're awful. They're
Jim
so bad.
Larinaga said no.
I'm done. Nope, I give up on you all. Just
He did
walked out
for
in the beginning of the season.
yeah. Um,
Alabama, Arkansas is going to be an intriguing game because of how Arkansas has hit their stride.
yeah. And there's a good
Texas,
game tonight with Arizona State, Texas Tech.
that's the game I was just about to say. Yeah, Arizona, they were looking like one of
Wait, did
Duke's
I say
first
Arizona
really good.
State? I meant Arizona.
I thought you said Arizona, but I
I
could
know,
have
I meant
misheard you.
Arizona.
Arizona was looking like was originally going to be one of Duke's best early season wins, and then they kind of hit a little funk and wasn't looking as good. But now they've found their stride again. So that win at Arizona is looking better and better every week for Duke, which is what I care
Well,
about. So,
but we will see. Indiana's all Indiana's always going to be a tough place to play. So we will see how Michigan handles that because Michigan is a very good team, but Indiana is always tough to play no matter who you are, just because of how Assembly's Hall built and the fans. The fans are crazy. They're loud, and Indiana plays better when they have, like most teams, plays better when they have their fans on their back. So
hmm absolutely. We got less than a minute, so I'm curious of what Ryan's going to get cut off by the timer this go around. Ryan is like one of the biggest victims of the timer on the show.
I am. Mike Woodson is going to win the Big Ten tournament and take him to the NCAA tournament, win the national championship, turn into Ryan Day. I mean, this is a perfect Ryan Day story.
If Matt was on this show, he would, in his best Patrick Star voice, would come on here and be like, "That's not crazy talk. This is crazy talk."
Yeah, but we will see. We'll see if they can beat Michigan today.
Hey, how about that step back Danny Wolf hit?
Oh, that was nasty.
That was nasty. Does he have
If
the best?
what
He has the best handles for a 7-footer in college.
he might.
He
Besides
might.
Olivia